Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the GD Report. This is Election Day +1. We're coming to you with some results and about the president and some Senate races and House races. And I'm G, and
I'm D.
And so let's get started. So, D, what's your overall take of how last night's results went?
Well, for anybody watching our podcast last night, I had to jump off a little early. I wasn't feeling well, a little bit under the weather, but feeling better tonight. But appreciate our guest and the G-Man finishing it out. But overall, I think Democrats tend to have a little bit of gloom and doom about it. But if you really start to dig in, I think that it was actually a really good night for Democrats, and I'll tell you why in a second. But I think, myself included, a lot of us got drawn into Florida and Texas and some of the big states like that. And we were so invested on winning those states that when we didn't win it, it just seemed like all was lost. Right. As the night went on and as the votes actually got tallied, what we saw was everything from 2016 pretty much held the same until we got to Nebraska 3. And that was one of the apportioned districts around Omaha, and Biden flipped that to him from Trump. And then we started seeing some other flips, and overnight we saw Wisconsin flip to Biden from Trump, which Clinton obviously didn't carry it. And then today we saw Michigan flip from Trump to Biden. We're on the precipice now, and some actually. I was going to talk to you about this earlier, G-Man, and I forgot on our pre-call planning. But Fox News has actually called Arizona for former Vice President Biden, much to the anger of the Trump campaign. They were pretty furious with Fox News for calling that. And so, for all intents and purposes, Biden has already flipped Arizona. And there's actually a couple of net pickups on the Senate side, not exactly the number that we wanted from the Democratic side, obviously. It wasn't the blue tsunami, but there's some really good stories there. Pennsylvania is out there that it may still flip. There's quite a bit of outstanding ballots. Georgia looks like it might flip once the ballots are all counted. And I think there's a pretty significant reason why the Trump campaign, we'll talk about this in a bit too, pretty significant reason why they're suing to stop the counts.
Right. So that's a pretty good segue. Let's kind of update where the electoral map stands now in the presidential race. So according to AP and National Public Radio, the current count is Biden 264, Trump 216. With the states of Nevada, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia outstanding. So Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, those upper Midwest states that were so pivotal in 2016, Biden has gotten those back and is now within six electoral votes of taking the presidency. He currently leads in Nevada. With Nevada is going to release their final vote count tomorrow at noon Eastern time. So we'll know the outcome of that race. And it's expected that Biden will hold that state, and that will ensure him over 270.
Yeah. Nevada, and you probably could substitute a lot of states for what I'm getting ready to say. But Nevada is notoriously close. You look back at some of the races over the years, even Harry Reid, when he was running for re-election, would win by 1 percentage point, those kinds of things. So notorious close. What I understand is the outstanding ballots they're waiting to count and announce tomorrow are all in Clark County and then up around Reno, which are usually pretty strong blue bastions, and they're mail-in votes, which, as we've seen from this election, because the Trump campaign pushed so hard to not get people to use mail-in ballots. The mail-in and absentee balloting has broken hard for Biden.
Right. Yeah.
So I told you my thoughts about the election. Why don't you tell me your thoughts?
Well, when we concluded the podcast last night, we had a Trump supporter and uh, Biden supporter, and both of those had been previous guests talking about why they supported their candidate. But the Biden supporter was pretty dejected and was pretty confident that as he went to bed that Biden had lost, that the Midwest states he needed to take were already trending Trump. And like the pundit said, the early voting or the early returns indicated that Trump might win. But as the absentee ballots and some balloting around the metropolitan centers came in, those votes shifted, and now Biden has been declared the winner. So I was surprised this morning when I woke up and I looked at the results, and that Biden had actually surged back into the lead. He's not over the hump yet, but he's certainly close. And I suspect not only will he take Nevada, but I think he's going to take Georgia as well. And we'll talk about that here in just a second.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick if I had to go with kind of some big losers of the night, I think the number one biggest loser of the night for me is pollsters. I think
Right.
they're still struggling with their formulas to either get the right sample sizes or I don't know what they're going to have some long hard talks about methodology. But I think another big loser for me is President Trump. And the reason that I think he's a big loser is not just the fact that I believe he's going to lose the presidency. He's going to lose the popular vote by over 3 million votes as well. And Joe Biden's going to have more popular votes cast for him than any presidential candidate in our history.
Right.
I think he's a loser for how he's handled the post-election counting or post-election day counting. His speech he gave in the East Room of the White House was chilling. It was authoritarian.
Right. Tell us about that.
Well, he spoke and if I'm really honest with you, I fell asleep and missed it. But I saw the recap of it, and the guy's talking about how we won. I believe we won, and we're going to take this to the Supreme Court. And it's just like everything else. He treats the institutions of our government like they're his toys that he can just call upon to do his bidding when he wants it. And he doesn't even understand that he doesn't have standing to take that case to the court. He's got to have standing in a case of some type to appeal or something. You can't just take something to the Supreme Court.
Right.
And so that's my big loser. My big winner, I've got probably three that I would call big winners. I would say my biggest winner of the night is the Biden campaign. And I don't just mean the candidate. I think the Biden campaign, when you go back and you listen to what they started saying about 2 weeks ago, everything has pretty much fallen in place exactly as they said it would. Jen O'Malley, his campaign manager, said, this is way closer than the polls are saying. It's going to be very tight. It's going to be very close. It's going to come down to Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania.
Right.
And everybody got excited, like I said, myself included. Oh my gosh, we might flip Florida. Oh, Lucy Brown with the football. We might win Texas. And again, we did not. But I think what they said all along was the most prudent advice that I heard. You heard the Trump campaign saying it's going to be a red wave and we're going to sweep everything, and that's simply not the case on either side. It's about as close as a country can be. But if you look back at the numbers, there's a lot of vote tallies in those states that have almost flipped exactly. I think the last numbers I saw on Wisconsin was that in 2016, Trump won by about 34,000 votes, and I believe Biden won by 30,000 this time.
Right. Let's talk about Georgia and where that race stands right now. So want to give you some numbers on that. Currently, according to the Washington Post, Trump leads 49.8 to 49%. Now, let me give you some real numbers on that. Dee, we can talk about this here in a minute. Trump has 2,427,950 votes to Biden's 2,388,954. And Dee, what's the difference there?
You're going to try to ask me that. It's about 39,000 votes.
Yeah, about 39,000 votes. There are currently 90,000 uncounted ballots, and most of those are in the counties of, or they're in the highly populated areas of Atlanta and Savannah. They're in counties Fulton, Chatham, Clayton, Gwinnett, and DeKalb. And why don't you tell us a little bit about those counties, Dee?
Well, they've trended strong for Biden, heavy African American populations. One thing I thought about too on those towns, those are all the towns that one of our favorite governors, G-Man, Brian Kemp, who by all intents and purposes did not win last time. And I think it's kind of funny that Trump is suing Georgia with his buddy Brian Kemp as the governor,
right,
in charge of the elections here. But Brian Kemp, really went after the governor or the mayors of Atlanta and Savannah when they tried to put a mask ordinance in earlier this year. And looks like the citizens there have spoken and spoken loudly. And with that kind of margin and those kind of numbers outstanding in Georgia, I mean, Biden in DeKalb County, I think he was winning at a 75% clip. And so there's definitely room for those votes to turn around. And that would be a huge game changer. Obviously, put him over 270, but it would be a huge victory for the Democrats too.
Yeah, and as you and I were talking, that has implications for the Senate race that's still undecided, right?
Potentially Senate races.
Right. Well, Raphael Warnock in the jungle primary, that's already been decided, right, between him and Kelly Loeffler?
I got you. I thought you were already talking about January.
No, talking about right now. So currently, John Ossoff is below the threshold needed to get into the runoff. Correct?
Well, it's in order to win even a standard Senate seat like that, not the special jungle primary, you have to get 50% plus one vote.
Right.
And David Perdue's now like at 50.2.
Right.
And Ossoff's about at 47 right now. But you got to think those ballots that come in for Biden, they're going to come in for Ossoff too.
Right.
And so one of two things, I think we're going to at least have another runoff, but it could flip the whole thing around and Ossoff could end up at 50+1.
Yeah, I mean, if there's enough votes outstanding. So let's do some quick math here. If you got your calculator for me. The first number we're going to start with is 2427967 minus 2294928.
133,000.
Yeah, so with 90,000 left, I think the best Ossoff can hope for is to pull Perdue below that 50% margin and get into a runoff.
Yep.
And then, we'll see how the months play out, because then the Dems and the GOP are going to be they're going to be laser focused on Georgia and trying to get those two seats or, split them. So there's going to be a lot of money. The TV stations in Atlanta are going to be raking it in
a short amount of time.
In a short amount of time. That's right. Yep.
Hey, if you didn't think having a pandemic Christmas was bad enough, imagine it with political ads.
Right. Yeah. those TV watchers that haven't cut the cord yet might actually want to think about doing that here shortly.
Well, I mean, we were joking about it in ours because where we live, I mentioned last night, is Congressional District 5 in Oklahoma. And we had a pretty hotly contested race, which the Republican ended up beating the first term Democrat. But this is a historically Republican seat.
Right.
But my wife was remarking about we cut the cord a while back, but you know we've still been inundated on Facebook and everywhere else with the political ads. So it doesn't help that I click on
them. Let's go up to Pennsylvania and talk about what's going on in that state. So here's some updated numbers for you. Trump leads 50.9 to 47.8. And Pennsylvania, tell us what you know about that count, Dee.
Well, the difference is 190,000 votes right now. And the best estimates right now is there's 860,000 more ballots to be counted.
Right.
So I'm not sure exactly the breakdown. I know a lot of that is Philadelphia. I know a lot of it is Pittsburgh, but there's going to be some other pockets around the state, maybe Erie, maybe Central around Harrisburg, those areas that'll give Trump some little bump. I think the little bumps, but the problem that Trump's had with these that I've seen because he discouraged his supporters from doing the mail-in ballots, is that when we've gotten our first numbers, it's been pretty much the day of voting. And that's been like the high watermark of his numbers.
Right.
And so because he has so few of his folks, that even the areas where, I mean, I saw it last night in Wisconsin with Green Bay, which Green Bay County is typically pretty conservative. Green Bay City, there's a little bit more of a blue pocket there, but they had some outstanding ballots from Green Bay late in the night. And I remember Steve Kornacki on MSNBC, somebody had said, "Oh, those are from Green Bay, so Trump could expect a bump from this." And he said, he's not going to get a bump from it because it's mail-in. We're waiting on the mail-ins from Green Bay City. And so it was just, it's the fact that the mail-ins are coming in afterwards because they obviously have to be processed. And the funny thing is that and I keep saying that, but Trump is kind of a victim of his own policies and his own attitudes here, because you had Republican legislatures in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania that thought they were going to be so funny and they're going to hold up the counting of these absentee ballots. And they tried to change the laws, and the governors in those states said, let's change it so we can start counting those early. No, we don't want to count them early.
Right.
Now they're falling victim to their own policies.
Right.
I mean, they're falling victim to the frenzy that it's causing. I mean, that's the thing, is the votes are the votes.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about some litigation, which is where this election is headed. So currently, according to the Washington Post, Trump's campaign has mounted legal challenges in 4 states. That includes Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Georgia. In Georgia, he's challenging the handling of ballots. I just saw a headline where he's challenging 53 ballots in one county that he alleges were illegally placed on the acceptable pile when they came in after the 7 p.m. deadline. I think what they're going to find there is that those ballots were postmarked by election day and thus should have been counted. I haven't seen, the one thing that I did find interesting about this this election, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I didn't see a lot of reporting on voter intimidation, and there didn't seem to be a lot of election shenanigans. I mean, in Atlanta, they had that pipe burst that waterlogged some ballots, but last I heard those were going to be able to be counted. And that was about it. Did you see anything else?
I saw a couple of isolated incidents, but I didn't really see nothing to the level that was kind of predicted. And I think some of it has to do with, again, the fact that so many of the Biden voters voted ahead of time.
Right.
They didn't even have to mess with it. I mean, when I went to the polls yesterday, I was hoping I would have some trouble.
Right. So Trump has filed suit to halt the vote counting in Pennsylvania and Michigan. And we were talking about this earlier. Why would you halt the vote counting in Michigan when you're already behind? The only thing I could figure out was that you halt the vote counting because you think if more votes come in and they're for Biden, it's going to be harder in a recount to get the current result overturned.
Yeah, I don't see him having cause to for any of these, or standing for any of these suits to go anywhere, because it's funny, the states' rights party is suing the states, and they're following each state law.
Right. Now he's also suing to have a recount, which I don't know why you would sue. You just basically, at least as far as I know, you basically indicate that you want to recount, and if it's within the
Is that in
state's margin
Wisconsin?
of error, that's Wisconsin. Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
Usually
but
that's
I
1%, right?
yeah, I did read up on that, where you can sue to do that, but I think it has to wait. I don't think you can do it for a week. So I think it has to be, they have to wait at least a week before they can start the suit on that. So
Right. Well, that state's pretty tight. It looks like about 21,000 votes is the difference between the winner and the loser.
well, I saw the state attorney general was on a program I watched earlier, and he was talking about his own election, how he won by less than 1%, and the governor won by just a little bit over 1%. They recounted both of those, and they found, I think, like a 2-vote difference.
Right.
And so
I heard somebody on NPR saying that in Wisconsin, the largest vote turnaround they had ever had in all of the recounts was 137. So
yeah,
that doesn't bode well for Mr. Trump.
no, it really doesn't. So what do you think? Where do we go from here? What are you looking for next?
Well, I'm looking for those results tomorrow about noon Eastern time, which is 10 o'clock my time here in Colorado, for Nevada. And if those come in the way I expect to hear a victory speech from Mr. Biden by about 10:30 my time. That's what I'm looking for. What are you looking for?
Yeah, I think that's probably the quickest. But I'll tell you what, man, they're working. I think they're going to work overnight in Georgia. We could get a call on Georgia and end the whole thing.
That's true. I was looking at. Oh, we should mention that the 90,000 absentee ballots that remain to be counted, that comes from some stellar reporting and some mathematical wizardry done by the crack staff at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution newspaper.
Yeah.
And so, I'll be watching that to see how that's going to play out.
All right. Well, this has been a fun recap, and we're all going to stay tuned. And I think it's a good reminder too. And again, maybe I'd feel different if I felt like this was going to come out a little differently. But I don't see a problem in taking a few days and getting it right.
Yeah. Well, one thing that just about everybody I heard last night talking was that almost no presidential elections. I think the last one that was decided on, that was decided on election night, was the 2004 election. I guess the 2008 election of Barack Obama. But
Right.
like 1976, 1980. I mean, there have been numerous races that weren't called on election night that it took a day or two to figure out exactly who was going to
When
win.
we talk about go back into the 1790s and the early 1800s, I mean, it would take weeks for the results to get to DC.
Right.
So, like I said, I think it's more important to get it right than to worry about rushing it. And,
right. CNBC reports that there were 159.8 million votes cast, and a lot of those were by mail-in or drop-off. And you take states that aren't set up to handle that. Now, Colorado is, and Oregon is, because we've been doing mail-in balloting for a while now. But you take a state that it's brand new and this is their first year to do it, it's going to take a long time to count those ballots. So yeah. I'm with you. No matter which way it goes, I think that the right thing to do is to make sure every vote is counted, every vote is reflected in the final tally, and at the end of the day, we know exactly who won what state and when, and we have a legitimately elected president, not one who just. What was Trump's tweet earlier today?
I hereby declare myself the winner of Michigan.
Right. Yeah. So that's not how our nation works. You're not a king, Mr. Trump, despite how much you'd want to be. And so, I just think the right thing to do is count every vote and come up with a legitimate outcome, no matter which way it goes.
I agree, and I think this shows the power of the mail-in ballot and early voting. And I think we need to really have I hope we have a President Biden, and I hope that he establishes an election commission and we can establish some norms across the board, across the entire 50 states, so
right.
that everybody votes in a similar fashion. Everybody has the same opportunities, that there's not all this tomfoolery about, Greg Abbott in Texas, making, one drop off in Harris County. I would, that when we start to do some deep dives on this, I'd like to know, how many ballots went out in Texas that didn't come back.
Yeah, we can certainly call them and ask them. I'm not sure they want to give that information, but
yeah, because I'm going to guarantee you there's going to be a lot of single parents and people working 2 jobs and stuff like that. If the election drop off is 45 miles on the other side of Houston, the one drop box, they're going to try to get their ballot in, but they got to pay the bills.
Right.
All right, everybody. Well, I don't get to tell you to get out and vote anymore.
Right.
Maybe there's a school board election coming up in February. We may be, well, we are going to be, you reminded me of that. All of our friends in Georgia, you've got an election coming up.
Right.
Make sure you're registered, make a plan. Raphael Warnock against Kelly Loeffler. And, when you look at the main 3 in that race, Warnock ended up about like 32%. I think Loeffler was about 28, and then Collins was about 22, somewhere in there, 23.
Right.
And so you look at that and you go, wow, 43%, voted for the top 2 Republicans, and it's going to be really hard for him to be competitive. And actually, it's if you go down ballot in that state, there were a ton of Democrats running. So you start adding that up, and it's pretty close to 50-50. So that's going to be an interesting race to watch, especially if we have a 49-49 breakout in the Senate.
Right. Yeah. So, we're going to watch that pretty close. There's a lot of topics for us to discuss in the coming days, weeks, and months, and we're going to be here covering it all for you. We've got a growing list of subscribers. We thank you for that. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. And anytime we update, and we update fairly frequently, you'll get that in your inbox, and you can go watch us. And as always, you can ask your smart speaker to play the GD report, and it'll come on right there on your Google Home or your Alexa device or whatever you're using.
Yeah. Everybody stay safe. Unfortunately, since it's November 4th, the virus did not go away.
Right.
Like President Trump said it would. In fact, I believe we set an all-time record in the USA today, where it's the first time we had 100,000 new cases in our country. And so it's still, the conditions are still really bad. Everybody be safe. I got a really good friend that his wife has it. She's in a medically induced coma now, and his 2 kids have contracted it as well. And it's real. It's affecting a lot of people. It never should have been political. Masks shouldn't be a political thing. Wear a mask, social distance. And if we fight this all together, we can get our economy back open.
Yep. Yeah, I talked to one person today who said he was sad to see Biden win because his 401k sure did, balloon up under Trump. And I countered with, well, that economic success started under Obama Biden. So there's no reason why Biden couldn't get that going again and get it to even higher numbers than Trump. Especially and this is one thing I'm looking for to happen fairly quickly if it is a Biden presidency, is those tariffs on China and that trade war gets ended, and we get back to where we were before that, because I think that actually hurt the economy a little bit.
Agreed.
All right, everybody, thanks again. We'll see you on the next episode of the GD Report.
Take care.